The blood on her dress had frozen into stiff patches by the time she collapsed on the trail outside Pyramid City, Nevada, her breath coming in ragged gasps that turned to white clouds in the bitter January air of 1884. Amelia Brennan had known cold before, but nothing like this. The kind of cold that crept into your bones and whispered promises of eternal sleep. She pressed her hand against her ribs where her stepbrother had struck her, feeling the sharp pain that came with each shallow breath. Clayton had always been cruel, but tonight he had crossed a line she never imagined possible. When their mother had married his father 5 years ago, Amelia had been only 15, hopeful that this new family might bring warmth to her life after losing her own father. Instead, Clayton had made her existence a living nightmare, his jealousy and rage growing worse with each passing year. Tonight, when she had refused his drunken advances for the 100th time, he had finally snapped. His fists had rained down on her with a fury that seemed endless, and when she had managed to break free and run, he had chased her on horseback out into the desert hills. She had thought she could hide in the rocks, wait until morning when someone might find her. But Clayton had found her first, dragged her from her hiding place, and beaten her until she could barely see through her swollen eyes. Then he had taken her small bag of belongings, the few coins she had saved, and her winter coat. "Let the desert take you," he had said, his voice cold and detached. "I'll tell them you ran off with some drifter. No one will come looking." He had ridden away, leaving her bleeding and exposed to the dropping temperatures of the high desert night. Amelia had tried to walk, tried to find her way back to town, but the darkness and her injuries had disoriented her. Now she lay on the frozen ground, wondering if this was truly how her story would end. The sound of hoofbeats made her force her eyes open. Through the blur of pain and cold, she saw a rider approaching, his silhouette dark against the star-filled sky. Fear seized her heart. Had Clayton come back to finish what he started? She tried to move, to crawl away, but her body refused to obey. The rider dismounted quickly, his boots hitting the ground with a soft thud. "Jesus Christ!" a man's voice said, deep and filled with concern. "Madam, can you hear me?" Amelia tried to speak, but only a small sound escaped her lips. Strong hands touched her shoulders, gentle despite their obvious strength. "I've got you," the man said. "You're safe now." She felt herself being lifted, felt the warmth of a heavy coat being wrapped around her shivering body. The man carried her to his horse, moving with a care that seemed at odds with his obvious power. He settled her in front of him on the saddle, keeping one arm securely around her waist while he guided the horse with the other. "Stay with me," he murmured as they began to move. "My ranch is not far. We'll get you warm and tend to those injuries." Amelia drifted in and out of consciousness during the ride, aware only of the solid warmth of the man behind her and the steady rhythm of the horse's gait. When next she fully woke, she was lying on a soft bed in a room lit by firelight. The warmth felt almost painful after the terrible cold, and she gasped. "Easy," the man's voice came from somewhere nearby. "You're safe. You're in my home." She turned her head, finally getting a clear look at her rescuer. He was tall. She could tell even though he was sitting, with broad shoulders and dark hair that fell just past his collar. His face was handsome in a rugged way, with strong features and eyes the color of warm honey. He looked to be in his mid-20s, perhaps 26 or 27, and there was a kindness in his expression that made something in Amelia's chest tighten. "My name is Marcus Northwood," he said, leaning forward in his chair. "I own a cattle ranch about 10 miles outside Pyramid City. I was riding back from checking on some strays when I found you. What's your name?" "Amelia," she whispered, her voice hoarse and painful. "Amelia Brennan." "Miss Brennan," Marcus said gently. "Who did this to you?" Fresh tears welled in her eyes. The shame and pain of what had happened threatened to overwhelm her, but there was something about Marcus's steady gaze that made her feel she could trust him. "My stepbrother," she said, "Clayton." Marcus's jaw tightened, but his voice remained calm. I've sent my ranch hand to fetch the doctor. He should be here within the hour. Can you tell me what happened? Haltingly, her voice breaking several times, Amelia told him everything. She told him about her mother's remarriage, about Clayton's increasing hostility, about tonight's attack. Marcus listened without interruption, his expression growing darker with each word. He left you to die, Marcus said when she finished, and there was steel in his voice. That's attempted murder. No one will believe me, Amelia said, fresh tears streaming down her bruised face. Clayton is well liked in town. He'll say I'm lying, that I ran away. His father has money and influence. I have nothing. You have me, Marcus said, and the certainty in his voice made her breath catch. I found you. I'm a witness to your condition. And I promise you, Amelia, Clayton will answer for what he's done. The doctor arrived not long after, a gruff older man named Dr. Patterson, who had seen his share of violence in his years on the frontier. He examined Amelia carefully, his weathered face growing grim as he catalogued her injuries. 3 cracked ribs, he said to Marcus after he had finished, extensive bruising, some lacerations that will need watching for infection. She's lucky you found her when you did, Marcus. Another hour in that cold, and we'd be planning a funeral. Will she recover? Marcus asked, his concern evident. With proper care and rest, yes, Dr. Patterson said. But she'll need several weeks to heal, maybe longer. Those ribs will pain her for some time. She can stay here, Marcus said without hesitation. I have plenty of room, and my housekeeper, Mrs. Chin, can help care for her. Doctor, Patterson nodded approvingly. Good man. I'll come by in a few days to check on her progress. In the meantime, keep her warm, make sure she eats even if she doesn't feel like it, and let her sleep as much as she needs. After the doctor left, Marcus returned to sit beside Amelia's bed. Mrs. Chin is preparing some broth for you, he said. You need to eat something. Why are you helping me? Amelia asked, studying his face. You don't know me. Marcus was quiet for a moment, his gaze distant. 5 years ago, my sister was attacked by a man who thought he could do as he pleased because he had money and power. No one helped her. Everyone looked the other way. She survived, but she was never the same. She moved back east to live with our aunt, said she couldn't bear to stay in a place where people had failed her so completely. He looked at Amelia, his eyes fierce. I swore then that I would never stand by and let something like that happen again. Not if I could prevent it. Amelia's heart clenched at the pain in his voice. I'm sorry about your sister. I'm sorry about what happened to you, Marcus replied. But I meant what I said. You're safe here, and you can stay as long as you need. Mrs. Chen arrived then, a petite Chinese woman with kind eyes and gentle hands. She helped Amelia sit up carefully, propping pillows behind her, and fed her small spoonfuls of rich chicken broth. The warmth of the food spread through Amelia's body, and she realized she couldn't remember the last time she had eaten. Thank you, she whispered to both of them. Rest now, Marcus said, rising from his chair. I'll be in the next room if you need anything. Mrs. Chen will stay nearby tonight to help you. Amelia watched him leave, this stranger who had saved her life and asked for nothing in return. She settled back into the pillows, her body aching but her heart feeling something she hadn't felt in years, hope. The next few days passed in a blur of sleep and pain. Amelia's body demanded rest as it began the slow process of healing, and she drifted between waking and sleeping, always aware that she was safe and cared for. Mrs. Chen was a constant, gentle presence, helping her with everything she couldn't do herself, never making her feel ashamed of her helplessness. And Marcus stopped by several times each day, checking on her progress, bringing her books to read when she felt strong enough, and talking to her about inconsequential things that helped distract her from her pain. It was on the 4th day that Amelia felt well enough to sit up for more than a few minutes at a time. Marcus had brought her a book of poetry, and they were discussing the merits of various poets when a knock came at the front door. Marcus excused himself, and Amelia heard voices in the other room, one of them familiar in a way that made her blood run cold. She strained to hear, her heart pounding. "I'm looking for my stepsister," Clayton's voice carried clearly. "Amelia Brennan. She ran away from home a few nights ago, and we've been worried sick. Someone in town said you found a woman on the road." "I did find a woman." Marcus's voice was cool and controlled. "And she's recovering from a vicious attack. Would you know anything about that?" There was a pause. "I don't know what she told you, but Amelia has always been prone to dramatics. She probably got into some trouble and is trying to blame someone else. She has 3 cracked ribs, extensive bruising consistent with repeated blows, and was left to die in the cold," Marcus said, his voice like ice. "That's not dramatics. That's attempted murder. Now see here." Clayton's voice took on an edge. "I don't know who you think you are, but that's my sister, and I have a right to see her." "She's not your sister. She's your stepsister," Marcus corrected, "and she has asked not to see you. I'm going to have to ask you to leave my property." "You can't keep her here against her will," Clayton snarled. "I'm not keeping her anywhere. She's staying of her own choice, where she's safe from whoever tried to kill her. Now leave before I have you removed." Amelia heard the sound of boots stomping toward the door, then Clayton's voice, low and threatening. "You're making a mistake, Northwood. A big mistake." "The only mistake would be letting you anywhere near that woman," Marcus replied. "Don't come back." The door closed firmly, and Amelia heard Marcus's footsteps returning. He appeared in the doorway, his jaw tight. "That was him, wasn't it?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. Marcus nodded. "He won't bother you here, I promise." But Amelia saw the worry in his eyes, and she knew that Clayton wouldn't give up so easily. Her stepbrother had never liked being told no. That night, Amelia lay awake long after Mrs. Chin had retired to her own room. The house was quiet, except for the creak of the old wood settling and the distant howl of coyotes. She was trying to decide what to do, where she could possibly go once she was healed, when she heard a sound that didn't belong. A window sliding open. Fear shot through her, sharp and immediate. She tried to sit up, gasping at the pain in her ribs, and opened her mouth to call for help. But before she could make a sound, a hand clamped over her mouth and Clayton's face appeared above hers, twisted with rage. "You stupid little fool," he hissed. "Did you really think you could hide from me? Did you think some cowboy could protect you?" Amelia struggled, but her injuries made her weak, and Clayton's grip was merciless. He began to drag her from the bed, and she knew with terrible certainty that if he got her out of this house, she would never be seen alive again. The bedroom door burst open, and Marcus stood there, his pistol drawn. "Get your hands off her! Now!" Clayton froze, but his grip on Amelia didn't loosen. "This doesn't concern you, Northwood." "I'm making it my concern," Marcus said, stepping into the room. His voice was steady, but Amelia could see the fury in his eyes. "Let her go and get out. Last chance." "Or what?" Clayton sneered. "You'll shoot me?" "I'm unarmed. That would be murder." "Self-defense," Marcus corrected. "You broke into my home and attacked a woman under my protection. Any judge would call it justified." For a long moment, the two men stared at each other. Then Clayton released Amelia, pushing her back onto the bed, hard enough to make her cry out. "This isn't over," he said to Marcus. "Yes, it is," Marcus replied. "Because tomorrow morning, I'm taking Miss Brennan to the sheriff, and she's going to file charges against you, and I'm going to testify about the condition I found her in. You're going to jail, Clayton." Clayton's face went pale, then red with rage. He lunged at Marcus, who sidestepped smoothly and brought the butt of his pistol down on the back of Clayton's head. Her stepbrother crumpled to the floor, unconscious. Marcus holstered his gun and immediately went to Amelia, who was shaking violently. "Are you hurt? Did he hurt you again?" "No," she managed. "You stopped him. Thank you." Marcus sat on the edge of the bed, and without thinking, Amelia reached for him. He gathered her carefully into his arms, mindful of her injuries, and held her while she trembled. "I've got you," he murmured. You're safe, I promise. Mrs. Chin appeared in the doorway, her eyes wide at the sight of Clayton on the floor. I'll fetch the sheriff, she said, and disappeared. Marcus didn't move, didn't let go of Amelia. She buried her face against his chest, breathing in the scent of leather and sage, feeling the solid warmth of him, and realized that somewhere in these few short days, this man had become her anchor. The sheriff arrived within the hour, a stern-faced man named Tom Hadley, who had known Marcus for years. He listened to Amelia's story, examined her still visible injuries, and looked at the unconscious Clayton with disgust. I'll take him in, Sheriff Hadley said. With your testimony and Marcus's, we should be able to hold him for trial. Judge Morrison doesn't take kindly to men who hurt women. What about his father? Amelia asked fearfully. He has money. He has influence. Judge Morrison doesn't care about that, the sheriff said firmly. He cares about justice. You'll be safe, Miss Brennan. I give you my word. After the sheriff had taken Clayton away, Marcus returned to Amelia's room. Dawn was breaking outside the window, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. You should rest, Marcus said, but he didn't move to leave. Will you stay? Amelia asked, surprising herself with her boldness. Just until I fall asleep. Marcus pulled the chair close to her bed and sat down, taking her hand in his. I'll stay as long as you need me. Amelia drifted off to sleep with her hand in Marcus's, feeling safer than she had in years. The trial took place 3 weeks later. By then, Amelia's visible bruises had faded to yellows and greens, but her ribs still ached with every breath. Marcus insisted on escorting her to the courthouse, and Mrs. Chin came along for moral support. The courtroom was packed. Clayton's father, Richard, sat in the front row, his face hard and cold. He hadn't tried to see Amelia since the arrest, hadn't sent any message of concern or apology. It was clear where his loyalties lay. Amelia took the stand and told her story, her voice shaking but clear. She described years of Clayton's cruelty, detailed the night of the attack, and explained how Marcus had found her nearly frozen to death. The prosecutor was thorough, asking questions that painted a vivid picture of what had happened. Then it was the defense attorney's turn. He was a slick-looking man from Reno, clearly expensive. Miss Brennan, he said, his tone falsely sympathetic. Isn't it true that you had been drinking that night? No, Amelia said firmly. I don't drink. And isn't it true that you had been seen in the company of various men in town, that you had a certain reputation? Objection, the prosecutor said, standing. Relevance? I'm establishing the witness's credibility, the defense attorney said. Overruled, Judge Morrison said, but his expression suggested he didn't like where this was going. But make your point quickly, counselor. Miss Brennan, isn't it possible that you were injured by someone else, perhaps a customer who became rough, and you blame my client because of a family dispute? Amelia felt her cheeks burn with shame and anger. That's a lie. I have never worked as a prostitute. I have never been with any man. Clayton did this to me because I refused his advances, because I wouldn't let him force himself on me. A murmur ran through the courtroom. The defense attorney looked taken aback, clearly not expecting such a direct answer. Dr. Patterson's examination confirmed Miss Brennan's virtue, the prosecutor added dryly, as is documented in his medical report. The defense attorney's face reddened, and he quickly excused Amelia from the stand. Marcus testified next, describing in detail the condition he had found Amelia in, the frozen blood on her dress, her injuries, her state of near death from exposure. His testimony was damning, and the defense attorney could do little to shake it. Dr. Patterson testified as well, providing medical evidence that supported both Amelia's and Marcus's accounts. The jury deliberated for less than an hour. When they returned, the foreman stood and announced, "We find the defendant, Clayton Brennan, guilty of assault with intent to commit murder." Amelia felt her knees go weak with relief. Marcus, who was sitting beside her, took her hand and squeezed gently. Judge Morrison sentenced Clayton to 15 years in the territorial prison. As the guards led him away, Clayton turned and locked eyes with Amelia. "This isn't over," he mouthed. But Amelia no longer felt afraid. She had survived the worst he could do to her, and she had won. Outside the courthouse, Richard approached them, his face a mask of cold fury. "You've destroyed my son's life," he said to Amelia. "No," Amelia replied, finding strength she didn't know she possessed. "He destroyed his own life when he chose to try to kill me. I'm only sorry that I didn't speak up sooner about his cruelty." "You're no longer welcome in my home," Richard said. "I never want to step foot in your home again," Amelia told him. "You knew what kind of man your son was, and you did nothing. You're as guilty as he is." Richard's face purpled with rage, but before he could respond, Marcus stepped between them. "This conversation is over. Miss Brennan has no further business with you or your family." He offered Amelia his arm, and she took it gratefully, letting him lead her away from Richard's venomous glare. "You did well in there," Marcus said as they walked toward his wagon. "You were brave." "I was terrified," Amelia admitted. "Bravery isn't the absence of fear," Marcus said. "It's doing what needs to be done despite the fear. You faced your attacker in court and told the truth. That takes real courage." Back at the ranch, Amelia found herself at a crossroads. Her injuries had healed enough that she could move around without pain, though her ribs still ached in cold weather. She could start looking for work, perhaps as a seamstress or a teacher, and find a room to rent in town. But the thought of leaving the ranch, of leaving Marcus, filled her with a sadness she couldn't quite explain. Over the past weeks, as her body healed, she had come to know Marcus in small, meaningful ways. She knew he rose before dawn each day to check on his cattle, that he read philosophy books by lamplight in the evenings, that he had a quiet sense of humor that emerged in unexpected moments. She knew he was kind to his animals and his workers, that he paid fair wages and treated everyone with respect regardless of their background. She knew that when he looked at her, something in her chest tightened with a feeling she was beginning to recognize as something deeper than gratitude. One evening, about a week after the trial, Amelia found Marcus sitting on the front porch, watching the sun set over the desert hills. She had been in the kitchen helping Mrs. Chin with dinner, and something had prompted her to seek him out. "May I join you?" she asked. Marcus looked up, his face breaking into a smile that made her heart skip. "Of course." She sat beside him on the bench, and for a while they watched the sky turn from gold to orange to deep purple in comfortable silence. "I should start looking for work," Amelia said finally. "You've been so generous, but I can't impose on your hospitality forever." Marcus turned to look at her, his expression serious. "You're not imposing. You're welcome to stay as long as you like." "Marcus," Amelia said gently. "People will talk. A young, unmarried woman living in a bachelor's home. It's not proper." "I don't care what people say," Marcus replied. "But if you want to leave, if you feel you need to, I understand, though I'll miss you." The admission hung in the air between them, heavy with unspoken meaning. Amelia's breath caught in her throat. "I'll miss you too," she said softly. "More than I should, perhaps." Marcus reached over and took her hand, his calloused fingers gentle against hers. "Amelia, I know the timing is terrible. I know you've been through hell, and the last thing you probably want is a man complicating your life. But I need to be honest with you. These past weeks, getting to know you, seeing your strength and kindness despite everything you've suffered, I've come to care for you. Deeply." Amelia's heart was pounding so hard she was sure he must be able to hear it. "I care for you too," she whispered. "I think I started caring for you that first night when you wrapped me in your coat and promised I was safe." Marcus lifted her hand and pressed a gentle kiss to her knuckles. "Then stay. Not as a guest, not as someone I'm helping out of obligation. Stay as someone who belongs here. Take your time, find your feet, and let's see where this could go. No pressure, no expectations. Just the chance to see what we might become together. Tears pricked Amelia's eyes, but for once they were happy tears. I'd like that, she said. I'd like that very much. Marcus smiled, that rare, brilliant smile that transformed his usually serious face. Good, because I wasn't sure what I was going to do if you said no. Amelia laughed, a sound that felt rusty from disuse, but genuine. You saved my life, Marcus. You gave me back my hope and my dignity. How could I possibly say no? You could say no because you deserve a choice, Marcus said seriously. You deserve to make your own decisions about your life without feeling obligated to anyone. And it was that understanding and respect, that made Amelia certain she was making the right choice. She leaned her head against Marcus's shoulder, and he wrapped his arm around her carefully, and they watched the stars come out together. The weeks that followed were some of the happiest Amelia had ever known. She settled into life on the ranch, taking over some of the household duties from Mrs. Chen, who was getting older and appreciated the help. She learned to ride horses, something she had never done before, and Marcus was a patient teacher. She helped with the spring branding, cooking for the extra ranch hands Marcus hired for the big job, and learned the rhythms of ranch life. And through it all, her relationship with Marcus deepened. They talked for hours about everything and nothing, discovering shared interests and debating friendly disagreements. He told her about his childhood, growing up on a small farm in Missouri before his family moved west seeking opportunity. She told him about her early years with her father before the fever had taken him and left her mother struggling to survive. Their first kiss happened on a warm April evening, 2 months after the trial. They had ridden out to check on a water source on the far edge of Marcus's property, and on the way back, they had stopped to rest by a creek. The desert was in bloom, wildflowers painting the landscape in brilliant colors, and Amelia was trying to identify them all. That one's desert marigold, Marcus said, pointing to a cluster of yellow blooms, and those purple ones are scorpion weed. They're beautiful, Amelia said. I never realized how lovely the desert could be. I used to think it was harsh and unforgiving, Marcus said, but I've learned it's actually incredibly resilient. Life finds a way here, even in the hardest conditions. It just takes the right circumstances. Amelia looked at him and saw that he wasn't talking about the flowers anymore. Like us? She asked softly. Like us, Marcus agreed. He reached up and brushed a strand of hair from her face, his touch sending shivers down her spine. Amelia, may I kiss you? In answer, she leaned forward and closed the distance between them. The kiss was gentle and sweet, full of promise and possibility. When they pulled apart, both of them were smiling. I've been wanting to do that for weeks, Marcus admitted. I was hoping you would, Amelia replied. They rode back to the ranch hand in hand, the horses walking close together, and Amelia felt as though she were floating. That night, Marcus asked her formally to court her, and she accepted with a full heart. Mrs. Chen was delighted, declaring that she had known all along they were meant for each other. The ranch hands offered their congratulations, with broad grins and knowing looks. But not everyone was happy about the development. A few weeks into their courtship, Amelia was in town buying supplies when she ran into her former stepfather, Richard. She tried to avoid him, but he blocked her path. So you've ensnared Marcus Northwood, he said, his voice dripping with contempt. How convenient for you. From penniless orphan to rancher's wife. I'm not ensnaring anyone, Amelia said, keeping her voice steady despite her racing heart. And I'm not marrying Marcus for his money. I love him. Love, Richard sneered. You destroyed my son, and now you're playing the innocent victim. I know what you are. Your son tried to kill me, Amelia said, her voice hardening. And if you can't see that, if you can't see how twisted and cruel he was, then you're beyond help. Now excuse me. She tried to step around him, but Richard grabbed her arm, his grip painful. You haven't won. Clayton will get out eventually, and when he does, let go of her. Marcus's voice was cold and deadly. He had come up behind Richard without either of them noticing. Now! Richard released Amelia's arm but didn't back down. Your whore is filling your head with lies. Marcus moved so fast that Richard didn't have time to react. One moment he was standing there sneering, and the next he was on the ground, Marcus standing over him. If you ever speak to or about Amelia that way again, Marcus said quietly, if you ever touch her again, you'll answer to me, and I won't be as gentle next time. Do you understand? Richard scrambled to his feet, his face a mask of humiliation and rage. You'll regret this, Northwood. The only thing I regret is not knocking you down sooner, Marcus replied. He turned to Amelia and offered his arm. Come on, let's get you home. As they walked away, Amelia was shaking. I'm sorry, she said. I'm so sorry you had to do that. Don't apologize, Marcus said firmly. That man deserved far worse for what he's put you through and for what he enabled his son to do. Are you all right? I am now, Amelia said, squeezing his arm. Thank you for being there. I'll always be there, Marcus promised, for as long as you'll have me. That night, as they sat together on the porch after dinner, Marcus asked, do you think you could ever see yourself staying here permanently, making this your home? Amelia looked at him, at this good, kind man who had saved her life and then given her reasons to want to live it. I already think of this as home, she said. Because you're here. Marcus took her hand, his expression serious. Amelia, I know we've only been courting for a few weeks, but I've known since the night I found you that you were special. These past months have only confirmed it. I love you. I love your strength, your kindness, your resilience. I love the way you've made this house feel like a home. I love everything about you. Amelia's eyes filled with tears. I love you too, Marcus. So much. Then marry me, Marcus said. Be my wife, my partner, the person I build a life with. I know it's fast. I know some people will say it's too soon, but I don't care. I know what I want, and what I want is you. Yes, Amelia said, laughing and crying at the same time. Yes, I'll marry you. Marcus pulled her into his arms and kissed her deeply, and Amelia felt as though her heart might burst with happiness. A few months ago, she had been lying in the frozen desert, certain she was going to die. Now she was engaged to a wonderful man, surrounded by people who cared about her, with a future full of hope and possibility. They were married on a beautiful June morning in 1884 in a simple ceremony at the small church in Pyramid City. Mrs. Chen stood as Amelia's attendant, and Marcus's foreman, a weathered cowboy named Jake, served as his best man. Dr. Patterson was there, along with Sheriff Hadley and several of Marcus's friends and neighbors. It wasn't a large wedding, but it was filled with genuine warmth and joy. Amelia wore a simple white dress that Mrs. Chen had helped her sew, with wildflowers from the desert woven into her hair. Marcus wore his best suit, and when he saw Amelia walking down the aisle toward him, his eyes shone with such love and pride that she felt her breath catch. They spoke their vows in clear, strong voices, promising to love and cherish each other through all of life's challenges. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Marcus kissed her gently, and the small congregation erupted in applause and cheers. The reception was held at the ranch, with tables set up in the yard and food enough to feed everyone twice over. There was music and dancing, laughter and celebration. Amelia danced with Marcus, with Dr. Patterson, with Sheriff Hadley, with Jake and the other ranch hands. She felt light and free, as though the darkness of her past had finally been lifted. As the sun began to set and the guests started to depart, Marcus pulled Amelia aside. Happy? He asked. Happier than I ever thought possible, she replied honestly. Good, Marcus said, kissing her forehead, because I plan to spend the rest of my life making sure you stay that way. That night, in the room they now shared as husband and wife, Marcus was gentle and patient, making sure Amelia felt safe and loved. Their coming together was tender and meaningful, a physical expression of the deep emotional connection they had built. Afterward, Amelia lay in Marcus's arms, listening to his heartbeat, and marveled at how dramatically her life had changed. "What are you thinking about?" Marcus asked, running his fingers through her hair. "I'm thinking about how lucky I am," Amelia said. "How close I came to losing everything, and how you saved me." "You saved yourself," Marcus said. "You survived. You fought back. You testified against your attacker. All I did was give you a safe place to heal." "You gave me so much more than that," Amelia insisted. "You gave me hope. You gave me love. You gave me a future. And you gave me the same," Marcus said. "I was alone here, going through the motions of living, but not really living. You brought light and warmth into my life. You made me remember what it feels like to care deeply about someone, to want to build a life with someone. You're my partner, my love, my home." Amelia kissed him softly. "I love you, Marcus Northwood." "I love you too, Amelia Northwood," he replied, and the sound of her new name made her smile. The months that followed were filled with the rhythms of ranch life and the deepening of their bond. Amelia learned more about running the ranch, keeping the books, and helping Marcus make decisions about the herd. She discovered she had a good head for numbers and a practical sense about business that complemented Marcus's more intuitive approach. She also started teaching reading and writing to some of the ranch hands who had never learned, holding classes in the evenings after dinner. Marcus was proud of her initiative, and the men were grateful for the opportunity to better themselves. In October, Amelia realized she was pregnant. She had suspected for a few weeks, but it wasn't until Dr. Patterson confirmed it that she let herself believe it was true. She told Marcus that evening, nervous about his reaction. "A baby?" Marcus said, his face breaking into a huge grin. "We're going to have a baby?" "Yes," Amelia said, relief flooding through her. "Are you happy?" "Happy?" Marcus picked her up and spun her around carefully. "I'm thrilled. This is the best news." He set her down and immediately became solicitous, insisting she sit down, asking if she needed anything, worrying about her health. Amelia laughed at his sudden overprotectiveness, but secretly loved it. "Dr. Patterson says everything looks good," she assured him. "The baby should come in early May." "A spring baby," Marcus said wonderingly. "Our child." Over the next months, as Amelia's belly grew, Marcus became even more attentive. He wouldn't let her do any heavy work, insisting that she rest frequently. He read books about pregnancy and childbirth, asking Dr. Patterson endless questions. At night, he would talk to the baby through Amelia's stomach, telling their child about the ranch and the animals and all the things they would do together. Amelia bloomed with pregnancy, feeling healthy and strong despite occasional bouts of nausea. She loved watching Marcus's excitement grow along with her belly, loved imagining their child running around the ranch, loved planning for their future as a family. In February, a letter arrived that cast a shadow over their happiness. It was from the territorial prison, informing them that Clayton had been killed in a fight with another inmate. He was dead. Amelia's first reaction was shock, followed by a complicated swirl of emotions. Relief that she would never have to fear him again, sadness for the waste of a life, guilt for feeling relieved. Marcus held her while she processed it all, letting her talk through her feelings without judgment. "It's all right to feel conflicted," he said. "He was a terrible person who did terrible things, but he was still a human being. It's natural to have complicated feelings about his death." "I'm relieved," Amelia admitted. "And I feel guilty for being relieved." "Don't," Marcus said firmly. "He tried to kill you. You have every right to feel safe now that he's gone. That doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you human." They received no word from Richard. According to Sheriff Hadley, Clayton's father had left Pyramid City shortly after the trial and had not been seen since. Amelia hoped he had found some peace, but she didn't particularly care. That chapter of her life was closed. In early May, as the desert wildflowers began their spectacular bloom, Amelia went into labor. Marcus was beside himself with worry, pacing the floor while Mrs. Chin and Dr. Patterson attended to Amelia. The labor was long and difficult, lasting nearly 20 hours, but finally, just after dawn on May 3rd, 1885, their son was born. A boy, Dr. Patterson announced, placing the squalling infant in Amelia's arms. A healthy, strong boy. Marcus came to Amelia's side, his face streaked with tears as he looked at their son. "He's perfect," he whispered. "You're perfect. Thank you." They named him Thomas Matthew Northwood, after Amelia's father and Marcus's grandfather. Tommy, as they called him, had Marcus's dark hair and Amelia's blue eyes, and from the moment he entered the world, he had both of them wrapped around his tiny finger. The first months of parenthood were exhausting and wonderful. Tommy was a good baby, healthy and alert, and watching Marcus with their son made Amelia fall even more in love with her husband. He was a natural father, patient and gentle, singing silly songs and making ridiculous faces to get Tommy to smile. Life settled into a new rhythm, one that included feedings and diaper changes and sleepless nights, but also incredible joy. Amelia had never imagined she could be this happy, this content, this fulfilled. When Tommy was 6 months old, on a crisp November evening, Amelia and Marcus sat on the porch together after putting their son to bed. The stars were brilliant overhead, and the air smelled of sage and wood smoke. "Do you remember the night I found you?" Marcus asked, his arm around Amelia's shoulders. "Every detail," Amelia said. "I remember thinking I was going to die. I remember being more sad than scared, sad that my life would end without ever really having lived." "And now?" Marcus asked. "Now I've lived more in these 2 years than in all the years before combined," Amelia said. "I've loved and been loved. I've built a home. I've brought a child into the world. I've found my purpose and my place. You gave me all of that." "We gave it to each other," Marcus corrected. "You've made me happier than I ever dreamed possible. You and Tommy are my whole world." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the stars wheel overhead, listening to the distant sounds of cattle and coyotes. "I want more," Marcus said eventually. "More what?" Amelia asked. "More everything. More children. More years. More of this life we're building together. I want to grow old with you, Amelia. I want to watch our children grow and have children of their own. I want to sit on this porch when we're both gray and bent and remember all the adventures we had together." "That sounds perfect," Amelia said, snuggling closer to him. "Absolutely perfect." And it was. Over the next years, their family grew. When Tommy was 2, they welcomed a daughter, Eliza Rose. 2 years after that came another son, James, and 3 years later, their youngest daughter, Sarah, completed their family. The ranch prospered under their joint management. Marcus expanded the herd, and Amelia's careful bookkeeping and business sense helped them weather the inevitable ups and downs of ranching. They became pillars of the Pyramid City community, known for their generosity and fair dealing. Amelia never forgot where she had come from, the darkness she had survived. She became an advocate for women in difficult situations, quietly helping those who needed a safe place or a fresh start. Several young women over the years found refuge at the Northwood Ranch, given work and dignity and a chance to rebuild their lives. Marcus supported her efforts wholeheartedly, understanding that helping others was part of how Amelia healed her own wounds. Tommy grew into a serious, thoughtful boy with his father's quiet strength and his mother's determination. Eliza was spirited and bright, always full of questions and ideas. James was gentle and kind, with a special way with animals. And Sarah was the baby, charming and funny, able to make anyone laugh. Marcus and Amelia taught their children about hard work and integrity, about kindness, and standing up for what was right. They told them stories of how they met, age-appropriate versions that emphasized courage and resilience and the importance of helping others. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Marcus gave Amelia a beautiful necklace with a pendant shaped like a desert wildflower. Because you bloomed in the harshest conditions, he said, and you've made my desert life beautiful. Amelia gave him a leather-bound journal filled with her writings, stories, and poems she had composed over the years about their life together. So you'll always remember how much you're loved, she said. They renewed their vows that day, surrounded by their children and friends, promising again to love and cherish each other through all of life's seasons. As the years passed, they watched Pyramid City grow and change. The railroad came through in the 1890s, bringing new opportunities and challenges. Some of the old-timers left, seeking quieter frontiers. New families arrived, drawn by the promise of land and fresh starts. Marcus and Amelia grew older together, their hair turning gray, their faces gaining lines and character. But the love between them never dimmed. If anything, it deepened, enriched by years of shared experiences, mutual support, and unwavering commitment. Tommy followed in his father's footsteps, taking over more and more of the ranch operations as Marcus slowed down. At 22, he married a sweet young woman named Catherine, and they started building their own house on a corner of the ranch property. Eliza, at 20, surprised everyone by announcing she wanted to be a teacher. She went to San Francisco to attend normal school, returning 2 years later to open a school in Pyramid City. She eventually married a lawyer named Samuel, and they had 3 children of their own. James, always happiest working with animals, became a veterinarian, studying in Sacramento before returning home to practice. He married his childhood sweetheart, Grace, and they settled on a small farm adjacent to the ranch. Sarah, the youngest, was the artistic one. She loved to paint and draw, capturing the beauty of the desert landscape. She eventually moved to Santa Fe, where her artwork gained recognition, though she visited home frequently. Marcus and Amelia became grandparents many times over, their house often filled with the laughter and chaos of grandchildren. They loved watching their children build their own lives, make their own choices, create their own happiness. On a warm June evening in 1914, 30 years after they had married, Marcus and Amelia sat on their porch as they had done countless times before. They were both in their 60s now, slowed by age but still sharp in mind and devoted to each other. "Do you have any regrets?" Marcus asked, taking Amelia's hand. Amelia thought about it seriously. "I regret the pain I went through," she said honestly. "I regret that my mother didn't live to see me happy. I regret that Clayton never found redemption. But I don't regret anything about us, about the life we've built. Every choice that led me to you, even the hard ones, even the painful ones, I would make again in a heartbeat." "I feel the same," Marcus said. "Finding you that night was the best thing that ever happened to me. You've given me 30 years of joy, of love, of partnership. You've given me children and grandchildren. You've made every day an adventure. We've made quite a life," Amelia said, looking out over the ranch that had been their home for 3 decades. "We have," Marcus agreed. "And we're not done yet. I plan to spend many more years with you, Mrs. Northwood." "I'm counting on it, Mr. Northwood," Amelia replied with a smile. As the sun set over the Nevada desert, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and purple and pink, Marcus and Amelia sat together, hands clasped, hearts united. Their love story had begun in darkness and violence, but it had bloomed into something beautiful and enduring. They had built a life together based on mutual respect, deep love, and unwavering commitment. Amelia often thought about that frozen night in January 1884 when she had lain on the cold ground, believing her life was over. She thought about the sound of hoofbeats, the feel of a warm coat around her shoulders, the deep voice promising she was safe. She thought about how one act of kindness, one decision to stop and help, had changed the course of her entire life. And she thought about all the women she had helped over the years, offering them the same second chance that Marcus had offered her. Some had gone on to build wonderful lives just as she had. Others had struggled, but at least they had been given the opportunity. That was all anyone could ask for, really. An opportunity, a chance, a moment of grace in a hard world. Marcus often thought about that night too, about the impulse that had made him take the long route home, about the flash of white dress against dark ground that had caught his eye. He thought about how close he had come to missing her entirely, to riding past without seeing her. He thought about how empty his life had been before Amelia and how full it was now. Their story wasn't just about romantic love, though they had plenty of that. It was about resilience, about the courage to start over, about the power of kindness and compassion. It was about two people who had found each other in the worst of circumstances and built something lasting and true. As the stars began to appear overhead, the same stars that had witnessed their first meeting all those years ago, Marcus and Amelia rose from the porch and went inside. Their children had invited them to dinner the next day, a gathering of all four families with all the grandchildren. It would be loud and chaotic and wonderful, exactly the kind of evening they loved. But tonight, it was just the two of them, as it had been at the beginning. They prepared for bed with the easy familiarity of 3 decades together, each knowing the other's rhythms and routines. They lay down together, Marcus's arm around Amelia's shoulders, her head resting on his chest, as it had countless nights before. "I love you," Marcus said, as he did every night. "I love you too," Amelia replied, as she always did. And in the quiet darkness of their bedroom, in the home they had built together, surrounded by the evidence of a life well lived, they drifted off to sleep, content and grateful and deeply, profoundly happy. The years continued to pass, bringing both joys and sorrows, as all years do. Marcus and Amelia celebrated their 40th anniversary, then their 50th. Their children thrived, their grandchildren grew, and began families of their own. The ranch continued to prosper, managed now primarily by Tommy and his sons. In their 70s, both Marcus and Amelia began to slow down significantly. Marcus developed arthritis that made riding difficult, though he still insisted on checking the herd from the wagon. Amelia's eyesight weakened, making her beloved reading harder, though she refused to give it up entirely. But through it all, their love remained constant. They still held hands when they walked. They still kissed each other good morning and good night. They still looked at each other across a room and smiled, sharing some private joke or memory. On a beautiful spring morning in 1924, exactly 40 years after that terrible night in the cold, Amelia and Marcus celebrated their lives together with their entire extended family. There were children and grandchildren, and even a few great-grandchildren now, dozens of people whose lives existed because of the love between these two people. There was a huge feast with tables laden with food. There was music and dancing, laughter and storytelling. Marcus and Amelia sat in places of honor, watching their descendants celebrate, marveling at how much had grown from that one moment of kindness so many years ago. "What do you think?" Marcus asked Amelia quietly, his arm around her shoulders. "Was it worth it?" Amelia looked at him, at this man who had saved her life and then spent the rest of his life proving that salvation was just the beginning. She looked at their children, strong and good and building lives of their own. She looked at the grandchildren playing in the yard, at the great-grandchildren being cuddled by their parents. She looked at the ranch still thriving after all these years, providing livelihoods for dozens of families. "Every single moment," she said firmly. "Every joy, every challenge, every ordinary day and extraordinary moment. All of it was worth it because I spent it with you." Marcus kissed her forehead gently. "You are the best thing that ever happened to me, Amelia Northwood. The best decision I ever made was stopping that night. The best choice was bringing you home. The best day was the day you agreed to be my wife. And mine was every day I woke up beside you," Amelia replied. They sat together as the celebration continued around them, two old people who had loved each other for 40 years and would love each other until the end of their days. Their story had begun in violence and desperation, but it had become a testament to the power of love, to the possibility of healing, to the beauty that could grow from the harshest circumstances. The desert wildflowers bloomed that spring with particular brilliance, carpeting the landscape in brilliant colors. Amelia and Marcus, walking slowly through them with the help of canes, marveled at their beauty. Like us, Amelia said, gesturing at the flowers, blooming in the desert against all odds. Like us, Marcus agreed, squeezing her hand gently. They lived several more years, each day a gift, each moment precious. They saw new grandchildren and great-grandchildren born. They celebrated more anniversaries, more birthdays, more ordinary days made extraordinary by their presence in each other's lives. When Marcus passed away peacefully in his sleep at the age of 78, Amelia mourned deeply, but without regret. They had been married for 52 years, and they had loved each other every single day. He had been her savior, her partner, her greatest love. She had been his light, his home, his reason for joy. Amelia lived 2 more years, spending her time with her children and grandchildren, sharing stories of Marcus and their life together. She made sure everyone knew the story of how they met, how he had saved her, how they had built something beautiful from tragedy. On a warm June evening, surrounded by her family, Amelia closed her eyes for the last time, a peaceful smile on her face. Her last words were, "I'm coming, Marcus." They were buried side by side on a hill overlooking the ranch, their headstones simple but inscribed with words that told their story. Marcus Northwood, devoted husband, father, and grandfather. He saved a life and gained a love. And next to it, Amelia Northwood, beloved wife, mother, and grandmother. She survived the cold and bloomed in the desert. The ranch continued to thrive for generations, passed down through their descendants. The story of Marcus and Amelia became family legend, told and retold to new generations as an example of courage, kindness, and enduring love. And sometimes on cold January nights, when the stars are brilliant overhead and the desert air is sharp and clear, people swear they can see 2 figures walking hand in hand through the hills, still together, still in love, still writing their story across the Nevada sky. Their love had begun in the darkest moment, when all hope seemed lost. But it had grown into something that transcended death itself, a testament to the human capacity for resilience, for forgiveness, for hope. Amelia had been hurt and abandoned, left to die in the cold. But Marcus had stopped, had taken her away from death and given her life, and together they had built something that would last long after they were gone. In the end, that was what mattered. Not the violence that had started her journey, but the love that had defined it. Not the cruelty of one man, but the kindness of another. Not the cold that had nearly claimed her, but the warmth that had saved her. Amelia and Marcus Northwood's story was one of triumph over tragedy, of love conquering hate, of light persisting in darkness, and it was a story that would be told for generations, inspiring others to be kind, to stop and help, to believe in the possibility of happy endings even in the harshest circumstances. Their legacy lived on not just in their descendants, but in every person who heard their story and was inspired to be better, to do better, to love harder. They had taken the worst moment of Amelia's life and transformed it into the foundation of something beautiful and enduring. And that, ultimately, was the greatest love story of all.